Welcome in to Hardcore Penn State Football. I've got new Wi-Fi. Shawn still has the same pretty face. And we have a lot to talk about. 8 Nittany Lions selected in the NFL draft. 3 more picked up immediately in undrafted free agency. We have the transfer portal officially closing, for whatever that means. Final tally there was 3 Nittany Lions entering. 1 has already found a new home. We have a couple film room breakdowns for you. I think we have 3 plays today. Might stretch out blue and white a little bit in the offseason since we have the time. And 6 fan questions. So thank you all for submitting your questions. Jam-packed show. Shawn Kane, Cory Lestochi just around the corner. I think our cameras are backwards. I just noticed that. Cameras backwards? I think so.
I think they look all right, though.
Yeah, they do, but different seeing you on that side. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
Not too bad, Cory. Not too bad. I want to thank you publicly for being a gracious host. On Saturday night, I stayed over Cory's for the Luke Combs concert, and it was a lot of fun.
Fantastic time. The weather cooperated, I think, as much as we could have hoped for, given the circumstances. Had a really good time. You know, apparently there was a fight in the pit, and I didn't realize that. I guess I was on the other side of the pit, so I did not experience the fight myself, but had a really good time at the Luke Combs concert. And, you know, the whole time I was just wondering, how can I, further donate to name, image, and likeness?
That's what our whole world revolves around. Creative ways to donate to NIL.
Right. No, Luke Combs concert was a blast. For those that are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, there was a tweet by a gentleman who I have honestly no problem with, no quarrel with in any regard, but I do have a problem with Shawn equating everything back to NIL and just choosing some random number and being like, if all of these people would just do this, we would have more NIL funds. If everybody in State College who goes out for a beer on a Friday night would just donate to NIL, then we would have enough money to do this. Okay. What does that actually mean? What action do you want somebody to actually take with that? I mean, it's just, at this point, hyperbole. I have no issue supporting the cause. Please, right now we're in the middle of a massive push that state media is doing. Go, if you have the opportunity, $5, $7, $12. Donate to the Happy Valley United Fund. We're trying to get to 500,000. I think the last time I looked, they're like $120. So a little bit of work to do there. But let's be realistic about what we're trying to do. Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, based off of, I'm going to separate those in a second, but those schools are having the NIL success mostly because of a handful of individuals, especially in Oregon's case, I feel like. Michigan is really one of the few schools that are maybe crowd sourcing that more, grassrooting it more than like Ohio State and Oregon's of the world. But they're doing it because they've had results. It's a lot easier to chip in $10 when you've won the Big Ten championship 2 years in a row and then just coming off the national championship. Crowd sourcing motivation is difficult without results. I mean, that's just what it is. Shawn, you follow politics way more than I do, but I mean, it is a difficult thing to do to run a grassroots campaign, which I know some candidates like pledge to not take any big donor money. Well, the reason why people take big donor money is because big donor money makes up a large chunk of it. And there's some fan questions about that tonight. But the point being, yes, the Shawn Kanes of the world, the Cory Lestochis of the world can help. And every dollar does help. But without the immediate support of some of the deeper pocketed individuals, Penn State's NIL fund is not going to be able to compete with the Ohio State's Oregons of the world.
Yeah, yeah. That's really that's really what differentiates us right now from those haves in NIL. And not to say we're a have not, but I think we're upper middle class. And because yes, we do have a great fan base. Yes, we do have the largest alumni association in the world, and yes, we do have some rich people who go to Penn State, but and have graduated and donate. But I think it was Jay-Z who said this. There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. Being wealthy, like that, the wealthy people are what we need to focus more on. And you're 100% right. Like in politics, the person who has the most money wins about 90% of elections. And the easiest way to raise the money quick is to go after rich donors. And that causes a lot of problems in politics that I could have a whole podcast about. But I did once. But yeah, that's the quickest way to raise the money. And Penn State has to do a better job of courting those wealthy donors rather than, and some people, you see this on message boards, you even see it on Twitter, they tend to shame people who don't donate. And I don't think that's the best way to do it, to shame a guy who's making like $60,000 a year and trying to raise a family into donating to the NIL fund. I think the best way to do it is to try to focus on those richer, wealthier donors. And like you said, that state media and Happy Valley United, they are doing that. They are raising funds for to retain the roar and keep our players here. I actually donated a little bit of money. So yeah, if you're feeling like chipping in, being part of this drive, definitely do it. But yeah, Penn State just has to do a better job in general getting after those wealthy donors.
Yeah, I mean,
and Luke Combs concerts. We can't Luke Combs concert our way out of this.
I don't think you like somebody was like, oh, like take like a dollar out of every ticket. I don't think legally you're allowed to do that.
You're not in Pennsylvania.
So just FYI on that one. And let's just be honest about it. As much as people want to say, oh, you got to have the funds in order to win, chicken egg situation here, you are not going to see a huge motivating push until Penn State's able to kind of break through the ceiling. But let's just be honest about it. The easiest way to motivate is to win. You can argue that you need to have those funds in order to win, but I mean, I hate to say it, but Michigan was able to basically do it. And they didn't necessarily have those amazing funds. Now, did they maybe cheat? Yeah, okay. But the point being, they were able to do it. And if you looked at James Franklin's teams the last couple of years, I don't think a couple more bucks was necessarily the reason. Now, could have made it easier, yeah, sure. But Shawn, even take last year, and I think this is a good segue into the NFL draft. Penn State just had 8 guys drafted in the NFL. Let me repeat that. Penn State had 8 guys drafted in the NFL last weekend, 3 of which were offensive linemen. Now, I don't think the 2023 season is probably going to be viewed this way, but it probably should be viewed this way a little bit more as a missed opportunity. You had 3 offensive linemen drafted, 2 of which were offensive tackles, which we know don't grow on trees, is one of the hardest positions to recruit and to scout and to develop. And you had 2 that went in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, which if you go look at Penn State's history in the last 20 years, that doesn't happen very often at offensive line in general, let alone offensive tackle specifically. And then Hunter Norzad obviously can play center, guard. You also had 5 other picks, including a skill position player in Theo Johnson, 2 defensive ends, and Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson, as well as a return specialist corner in Daquan Hardy. I mean, you had a lot of different pieces here at the same time as a 5-star quarterback and 2 5-star running backs and an elite defense. Now, those things are different when you actually start putting, first year starter 5-star quarterback. But the I guess the point I'm trying to make here is there were a lot of pieces for Penn State to succeed in 2023, including a relatively down Ohio State and including getting Michigan at home. So maybe we won't look at it that way because things will all just be better in 2024. But I think coming out of this draft and you're seeing 8 guys picked and 3 guys immediately picked up, there was a lot of talent on this team. And I'm going to say there was some missed opportunity to really do some great things. And that was a team that maybe didn't have all the NIL funds needed. And they probably still should have done better than they did. So I guess my point, roundabout way of saying, is Franklin's had good enough teams to break through. Whether he hasn't caught the lucky breaks or made the exact right decisions or an injury or a bounce goes this way or that way, whatever the case being, I don't think it's necessarily NIL funds alone that are preventing him from succeeding. I would argue if you play the last 6 years over, Shawn, he probably gets into the playoff at least once or twice. He kind of been on the wrong side of the coin as far as flipping that and seeing where it ends up. And I don't know if NIL necessarily gets them in an extra 2 or 3 times, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and look, you need NIL, right? I don't think anybody disputes that you need a strong NIL fund in order to compete for the things that we want to compete for Big Ten championships, for national championships. I don't think it's a crazy ask anymore now that with the expanded playoff to want to be in the playoff 4 to 5 years. I don't think that's crazy. But the way you do that, you have to be able to attract guys with that, partly attract guys with NIL, and then be able to retain the guys that you have. A huge part of why Michigan won the national championship was because they were able to have so many seniors on their team. They didn't have so many guys declaring early. Penn State has had guys in the past, and the more definitely recent past, who, looking back at it, hindsight being 2020, should have stayed a year in college because their draft stock really wasn't good. And maybe with more NIL funding, maybe they would have stayed. I don't know. But I know this was a focus of Michigan's to be able to keep guys like Roman Wilson, to be able to keep guys like Blake Corum around. They're keeping Donovan Edwards next year. Like, this was a big focus of theirs. And part of it is they only recruit around the same level Penn State does, which is fine. Top 15 almost every year. Sometimes you get in the top 10. But the thing that made Michigan so good was, one of the things outside of just being, very, very well coached, was they were able to have so many 4th and 5th, and this year with COVID, 6th-year seniors on the team. Right. And Penn State didn't have that. That was part of why Michigan won the national championship. And that's a model Penn State could definitely go after. Because if you want to raise more NIL funds, like you said, part of it is just winning, and you have to be able to have results. And Penn State fans have shown through these past few years they want to see something before they give. They want to see more. And look, it's their money, and they want to see more results before they donate. And I think if you see Penn State hypothetically beat Ohio State next year, or even if they don't beat Ohio State, they somehow win the Big Ten, or they make the playoff and win a playoff game, you're going to see more people donate. I'm pretty sure of that.
It just, it's not a just simple formula, right? Otherwise, everybody would do it. But I think you hit on it pretty well there, Shawn. I want to go to Brian here in the YouTube comments. He says, agreed that 2023 was a window that was missed. Should have beat Ohio State, all factors considered. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that when you look back at it in hindsight. Now, again, when I say, like, there's a couple things that maybe didn't go their way, one of those things is a guy named Marvin Harrison Jr. who didn't let things go pretty much anybody's way, right? But that's just kind of what you have to deal with. You got to figure it out. But I don't know if we're going to get into it tonight specifically, Shawn, but you kind of need your quarterback to also play better in those moments, which we've talked about a decent amount. I'll have a little bit on the film room. But Shawn, let's talk about the NFL draft since we're here. So let me just run through the picks real quick. And then I'll give you a second to be happy because I know you're going to be happy for a second. Here are all the picks. Offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, 11th overall to the Jets. Defensive end Chop Robinson, 21st overall to the Dolphins. Offensive tackle Caden Wallace, 3rd round to the Patriots. Defensive end Adisa Isaac, 3rd round to the Ravens. Tight end Theo Johnson, 4th round to the Giants. Center/guard Hunter Norzad, 5th round to the Chiefs. Cornerback/return specialist Daquan Hardy, the 6th round to the Bills. Cornerback Kalen King, 7th round to the Packers. And then undrafted free agents Curtis Jacobs to the Chiefs. Linebacker, I should say. Keaton Ellis, cornerback to the Titans. And running back Trey Potts to the Chiefs. Shawn, I will give you your second to enjoy yourself.
Chop Robinson. So excited about Chop coming to Miami. So it's going to be it's a good landing spot for him because he's going to be able to learn from the Bradley Chubbs of the world, the Jalen Phillips, and Shaq Barrett. So it's a good spot for him. He's going to be around guys who have been successful before. The Miami Dolphins new defensive coordinator comes from the Ravens. Ravens have loved Penn State defensive ends in the past, and I think he's going to be a solid fit there. Definitely has some things to improve on, and that's what I'm going to get to now, because, and I hope Dolphins fans could see this somehow. I went from being ecstatic when Chop was drafted by the Dolphins, just loving life. I was freaking out. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking on Twitter, which is a big mistake. All these Dolphin fans just have no idea what they're talking about. They're saying, oh, you got another project. He wasn't productive. He's a defensive end who's a pass rusher who can't get sacks. And I was just like, you people have no clue what you're talking about. Like, you've never watched this guy. He was, I saw a chart, and he caused more pressures than almost anybody in college football in the last 10 years. And these people are talking about how unproductive he is. And it's just bullshit. Like, the guy has been, ask any Penn State fan out there. I'll ask Corey in just a minute. Has Chop Robinson been productive? Yes. But this is what happens when people are just stat watchers. And we do have some stat watchers that are Penn State fans. But, like, when people don't know about a guy, then they do a quick Google search, and that's the extent of their research. And they go, ooh, he sucks. Like, dude, watch the tape. Watch the games. So that made me mad. But besides all that, I am very, very happy that Chop Robinson is a Miami Dolphin. I finally have another Penn Stater on the Dolphins. And I needed one because we have Olu going to the Jets to defend the conspiracy theorist, or block for the conspiracy theorist. And then we have Caden Wallace going to the Patriots. So I needed a Dolphin in this draft. And I needed a Penn Stater in this draft, and I got one.
The part about watch the film, I mean, Shawn, I get frustrated with that quite a bit, because that is something that happens often, where we're being yelled at by people that haven't watched the film. So, I kind of agree with you on all that.
Yeah, it's just like, be educated. learn something. If you don't know something, don't say anything.
I
Just
do
say, I got to look.
I do ask you to take better care of him than you guys took of Mike Gesicki, but
Mike's problems were Mike's problems. That's all I'll say. As much as, and I love you, Mike, but
so look, I mean, this is bad because we really should be talking about Olu and how impressive it was. First of all, he shouldn't have ever slipped to the 11th pick. It just goes to show. I mean, what the first 3 picks are quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Just goes to show you again that NFL GMs have no idea what they're doing. I mean, I saw Harbaugh took an offensive lineman right away, and that's like, oh, that makes sense. Like he's already doing it again. Make no mistake, Harbaugh is a fantastic head coach, especially in the NFL. And
people were weirdly surprised he took an offensive lineman. Like, do you guys not know anything about Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah. And that's, I guess, my point is, like, again, the reason you're at the top of the draft is because you don't know what you're doing most of the time. And sure enough, people continue to just go crazy on quarterbacks. In my opinion, like, Caleb Williams, I think is going to be pretty good. But honestly, I don't know how good he's going to be with the Bears. I know they did some good things with the offensive weapons and whatnot. But, I mean, just, again, back-to-back quarterbacks picks and then letting a guy like Olu fall out of the top 10 is just insane to me. But congrats to Olu. I think it's a really good pick for the Jets and fantastic value at the 11th pick. Kane Wallace, we said early on that we thought Kane Wallace was going to go a lot earlier than a lot of people thought. I forget if you said 4th round or 3rd round. I think you said 3rd round, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, I think we both said 3rd on that one. We also, I think, both thought, or did you think Adisa was 3 or did you think Adisa was 4?
3rd.
Okay, so we both agreed there, which I don't know if everybody thought Adisa and Caden were going to go 3, but we agreed there. The one surprise was I thought Theo Johnson was going to go in the 2nd round. He slipped to the 4th round. That was pretty surprising.
Yeah, I had him in the Giants 3rd round too.
Giants got some serious value there. The one tight end from Illinois went before him, and I don't really understand that one. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes for them. I forget where he went, whoever that Illinois tight end was. But Hunter Norzak going in a 5th, I thought was a little bit earlier than I thought, but I think it makes sense. He has the ability to play center, guard. Really happy for him because I don't know if he got as much love as he deserved. Nice to see Daquan going to 6th. So I thought he was going to go into 7th. So really nice to see Daquan going to 6th. The Bills, I think it's a really good spot for him too. Look, I think we harped on Kalen King enough throughout the last year where we don't have to spend too much time on it. Yeah. I think we have to do the due diligence of just, again, saying before last year, he was a projected 1st rounder, and he slipped to the 7th round to the Packers, like 4th or 5th last pick of the draft. Don't need to harp on it any more than we already have. But I will say this for the Packers, that's still pretty tremendous value to get him in the 7th round. I mean, as much as cornerback is having confidence and kind of that moxie to yourself, if Kalen King maybe just lost it a little bit, but if he can find it, I mean, that's a hell of a pick in the 7th round. I mean, that. And you know what? Those last couple of picks are people that you don't want to have to go bid for in free agency there. And so that was a great pick by the Packers there. Jacobs Chiefs, Ellis Titans, and Potts with the Chiefs. I think Potts is going to make the roster because I love that guy. But Shawn, I want to just harp on maybe somebody who wasn't picked up yet. And to my knowledge, on May 1st, still hasn't been picked up yet. And that's Johnny Dixon. Look, a lot of people are going to attack Johnny Dixon and attack Kalen King for not playing in the Peach Bowl. Totally understand the perspective on this whole thing. I do think they could have improved their value by playing. Clearly, King went in the 7th round. Dixon didn't play. Dixon actually got hurt in practice after preparing for I think it was a Senior Bowl, and wasn't even able to do anything at the Combine and or the Pro Day. That hurt his stock tremendously. I still can't believe he's not picked up. And I guess that's my point. Johnny Dixon is a really good instinctual football player. He can rush the quarterback. He has a knack for the football. He's aggressive and also physical in press and man coverage. think he's going to be a really good football player, whoever takes a chance on him. But Shawn, part of you has to kind of just think a little bit here. The guys that sit out of bowl games, again, completely your decision. I have no quarrel with it. But in hindsight, does it look like it was maybe the right decision? Doesn't seem to be so.
Yeah. And I think James Franklin has talked a little bit about this. Now, granted, he's got some interest here, personal interest, but he has said before that most of these decisions that they make, and it's similar thing with the portal too, are mutually beneficial. And yeah, I mean, obviously looking back at it, it would have made sense for them to play in the bowl game. And really, in my mind, in my view, if you're not a projected first round player, you should probably play in the bowl game, because after round one, especially after those, if you're not projected to be like a top 15 pick like Olu was, your draft value could go a lot of crazy ways in just 3 months. If something like what happened with Johnny Dixon happens, you get hurt, and then you can't go to the combine, and then you can't participate in pro day. People are going to forget about you. You're going to kind of slip through the cracks a little bit if you're not one of those top, first round guys. And this is the kind of thing that could happen. And Kalen King, I agree with you. It's not worth harping on, but nobody had Kalen King lower than an early second round pick this time last year. Nobody. And he didn't have a great year, but then he doesn't play in the bowl, and then he runs the 40 at over 4.6, and that was probably the final nail in his draft coffin. Now, he still got drafted, but he was kind of flirting with the mid rounds, and then he got knocked down to the later rounds. So your draft stock could really, really do a lot of nutty things. So the best thing you could do is put good film out there and show that you could, and show what you could do. And you especially look at Penn State's particular situation with their defensive backs this year. And I think the secondary was very good. They didn't play against a lot of good quarterbacks. They didn't play against a lot of good passing attacks. Like the best quarterback they played was J.J. McCarthy, and he only threw the ball 9 times. So their only real exposure to a good passing offense was against Ohio State, where we all know what happened with Harrison against Kalen King. But when you don't have as much to put on film and you're untested, yeah, it's a good idea to play in the bowl game and show that you could compete against good receivers, because Ole Miss did have a good passing attack. They did slice us up. And yeah, if we have Kalen King and Johnny Dixon, it could be a completely different game. So it's a bit of a cautionary tale. But as far as the other guys go, yeah, it's going to be, yeah, the Chiefs really like our guys. Like 3 guys to one team, you don't see that a whole lot. And I think I'll take what's his name's word for it, T. Frank. He said that the Bills weren't a great fit for Daquan Hardy because of the defense they play, which I found surprising.
Interesting. Let us know your thoughts on YouTube on that one. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the should you sit out, should you play, or just kind of over it and ready to move on. I'm curious what you guys think on that one. Quick little plug again. We do read 5-star reviews from Apple Podcasts, so go on to Apple Podcasts if you're listening to the show. Make sure you're subscribed first of all, and then if you drop us a review, we'll read it on the show. Transfer portal is technically closed, Shawn. I don't really know what that means, because the transfer portal being closed doesn't really seem to stop anybody anymore. But it is officially closed. I will say this though, Shawn. Only 3 entries in the spring cycle. Keandre Lambert-Smith, Wide receiver Malik Mega, and just recently, defensive tackle Devon Townley, who's entered the portal now for the second time. Would assume that he does not come back this time around. But
you think James Franklin's going to tweet about them?
No, not like Coach Prime. No,
that's what smart coaches do. Actually,
I was thinking about that. I'm like, every coach right now, no matter what they do, at least they can say, "Hey, at least I didn't do what Coach Prime is doing." My point is, yeah, man, it's getting bad. Like, people are posting like his daughter's basketball stats. It's getting interesting there. But my point being, I thought there was going to be more of an exodus. I thought we were going to see a lot more people enter the transfer portal after the spring, because again, they talked to every single player after the blue and white game, kind of tell them where they're at, where they want them to be, what their plans are for the summer, etc. And I really thought that we were going to see more people enter. I think we saw about the right number for wide receiver, Malik Mega entering, who they'll miss in the special teams department, and then Keandre Lambert-Smith, who obviously had a big role last year. We talked about him ad nauseum at this point. He's already found his new home at Auburn. And then Devon Townley just entered. But I thought we were going to see potentially 5 or 6 people enter the portal. That hasn't necessarily been the case to this point, Shawn.
Yeah, this was an unusual portal session, I guess is the best way to put it. I thought in general in college football we'd see more. Colorado had a lot of guys leave. We've already talked about them. But there really wasn't that much movement, which was unusual across college football. And yeah, Penn State's really no different. Only 3 guys. I thought we'd see maybe 4 receivers leave. I thought Penn State would add a receiver. They did not. I do believe grad transfers, correct me if I'm wrong here, Corey, I think grad transfers could still transfer in between now.
That's right.
Between now
and you can still pick up anybody who's already in the portal.
Right. Now, portal right now, especially at receiver, is pretty slim pickings. I think we know that because Keandre Lambert-Smith was the most coveted guy. We all know the story on Keandre Lambert-Smith. So that just kind of tells you where you're at, that you're probably not going to find anybody better than him in the portal right now. So now there's always a chance for a grad transfer to jump in, and then you could get in on that. But it's far from a guarantee. So this is probably more or less the roster we're going to roll with in the fall. And Corey, I'll ask you, are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with the guys we have?
Yeah. Can't be that comfortable at wide receiver, right? I mean, just can't be. But I'm looking at it, Shawn. It's like, here's the receivers that are available in the transfer portal according to On3 at the moment. You have 4-star Elijah Badger, who was with Arizona State. He's undecided. He went in 419. You have he's a redshirt junior. You have senior Zakari, who was at Ole Miss. He's undecided there. You have those are the only 2 4-stars or former 4-stars. Then you have Eli Green, who's a freshman, 3-star guy, entered from North Dakota State. You have Keon Grays, who was a former 4-star from Ohio State, and he hasn't landed anywhere yet. Former 4-star Javarius Johnson from Auburn. Looks like he might end up at UCF or Utah. And then the only other one I really want to mention here is former 4-star Carmelo English, who's actually from Phoenix City, Alabama, which is just down the road from Auburn. Penn State was actually after, what was his name from Phoenix City, the defensive end?
TJ Parker.
Yes. He was at Michigan. He was a former 4-star wide receiver at Michigan. He entered the portal. He doesn't have a home yet either. But I guess my point being, as far as like rating goes, there's only 2 4-star guys right now there. So like you said, slim picking, Shawn. So I would say, look, I mean, I got a lot of question marks about this team, just to be frank about it. But I don't know what else you can do at this point. Unless there's an obvious pick. I don't think you can just kind of roll the dice on a receiver right now. I think you need either an obvious one or not. And how many times have I said this on the show? The obvious pick is not going to be an easy pick for Penn State to beat out everyone else. So they're probably done, like you said.
Yeah, they probably are. And I think now you really have to fall back to Penn State's got to be able to develop the guys they have. And right now, I know I think we've talked about every receiver we have. And there are a lot of intriguing names from the high school level, but doesn't mean a whole lot right now that they were highly recruited guys out of high school. Doesn't really mean anything. It means that there's some talent, which is good, but you got to be able to develop these guys. Like you said, I don't think there's a guy on a white horse coming to the rescue here. I think the best we're going to have is what we have. And we were able to add Julian Fleming, but we lost Keandre Lambert-Smith. We'll see if that's a net positive. I happen to think it will be. Adding Fleming and losing Keandre, I happen to think that will be a net gain. But especially when you take everything into consideration, but is that enough? I don't know. And I'm also a little uncomfortable with where we're at right now. This team does have some more question marks than just receiver. That's something we've talked about quite a bit. The passing offense itself has more question marks than just receiver. So yeah, this is just kind of where we're at, and these are the guys we're going to be rolling with. Now, again, I think we talked about last pod. Don't worry about the 85 player scholarship limit because that, for all intents and purposes, really doesn't exist anymore with some fancy accounting. So, yeah, for better or for worse, here we go.
Yeah, we have another fan question on that, but I think now is a perfect time to go to the film room.
That Rose Bowl run seems so long ago.
All righty here.
There's Kalen Kane.
Before I start this, welcome into the Family Clothesline film room. The first play we got here from the blue and white game. It's going to be a simple little wide receiver screen and transfer cornerback AJ Harris blows it up. Now, I love blue and white games because you get to look at both the offense and the defense. And first of all, great instincts here by Harris. Like, this is kind of what we've heard and seen. He's physical. He gets after it, and that definitely seems to be the case here. So you got to be really excited about that. But maybe the more glaring problem here, and maybe why we haven't necessarily seen as much Omari Evans, is the lookout block that we saw. You ready for this? 1, 2, 3. Look out. And he's wrapped up. Great wrap up, by the way. Kane Saunders is slippery, and Harris made it look pretty simple there. So I wanted to show that play because that was kind of confirmation of what we'd heard from AJ Harris so far this year, as far as what he's able to do.
Yeah, Amari Evans might want to think about blocking someone there, because that's the first thing that stood out to me too. Was, man, you have to be able to at least try to come close to putting a hat on a hat. But yeah, that's like you said too. You take the bad with the good. AJ Harris is going to be a baller here, and that's that 5-star talent flashing right there.
Alrighty, let's go to the next play. Okay. So again, welcome into the Family Clothesline film room. Shawn, this play really frustrated me because we saw this a lot in the back half of the season last year, where Penn State found themselves in a really favorable position on defense. 3rd and 13. Should be able to get off the field. Should be able to prepare and defend the pass. Well, what did a lot of teams decide to do? Well, instead of trying to go up against Penn State's great pass rush, they said, we're just going to run into it. And sure enough, 3rd and 13, what does Penn State try to do to themselves, featuring Cam Wallace? They run the ball. And look, I understand being ready for the pass, but from my understanding, linebackers should never be bailing as fast as we're bailing on this play. I mean, that just made it too easy for the running backs. Should still be taking your read step. And it looks like 95 here is going on a little bit of a stunt. But basically, it just makes it look even easier for this offensive line. They get to the second level well there. Tight end gets the block. I mean, they lock on, and it's a big play. And again, a frustrating play on a 3rd and 13 to give up the first down and to move the sticks. Not what you want to see after Penn State. I think Michigan maybe did it twice on 3rd down against them to move the sticks. Not exactly what you want to see as far as a habit being broken this spring.
Yeah, if there was one weakness on Penn State's defense last season, it was getting off the field on 3rd and longs. We were fine 3rd and manageable, third and short, but the percentage of plays that we gave up on 3rd and longs just can't happen. I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but it happened way too much and too many inopportune times. So it's something that, definitely doesn't look remedied here. Also, you gotta give Cam Wallace some credit here. Does a nice job reading his blocks. His blockers do a nice job getting downfield, getting to those linebackers, and he shows his burst. And God, that RB3 battle is going to be one of the most intriguing battles in all of camp, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I actually have 2 more. So, again, family clothesline film room. Welcome to the show, wide receiver Julian Fleming. First catch in the blue and white, and it's actually pretty good coverage by Cam Miller. Just a really nice job by Julian Fleming to fight back inside and then make a pretty tough catch in traffic. Why I want to point this out, this to me is what Julian Fleming is going to bring to the table. He is not probably going to stretch the defense vertically, but he's being brought in to be the safety blanket. I will catch anything you throw at me, Drew Aller, even in tight situations, even in this case, to get some momentum going early in the drive. Get me the ball. I'll pick up 4 to 5 yards, and we'll kind of keep us in manageable situations. I also want to say the offensive line did a pretty good job on that play, giving Drew Aller another second or 2 of time. Aller sits in the pocket, and he delivers the football where it needs to be. He actually reads the defender, Dom DeLuca, there really well. So simple play, but yet this is kind of what I expect to see from the Penn State offense in the fall is some nickel and diming to Julian Fleming to maybe lull them to sleep before they go to over the top with a different receiver.
Yep, simple but effective. Hear what you're saying about Fleming. He's a possession receiver. I think we've said that almost every podcast that Julian Fleming is a possession receiver, and that's not a knock. You need guys like that. You need guys to be able to move the chains, pick up 5 to 10 yards at a time, and that's what he's going to be. It was good too that Aller didn't try to fit anything to that tight end because DeLuca would have came over the top and picked it off. So, because if you look, the tight end actually is more open off of the initial guy, Sakeet Wheatley, but like you said, Drew does a good job making that read, knowing DeLuca's going to go with them and is able to fire the ball into Fleming. So, yeah, that's fine and dandy with me with the picking up some yards there.
Yeah, Dom DeLuca robbing that route and actually did a pretty good job, but Aller looks to kind of look him off a little bit. So that's good there. The next play I want to show you, again, maybe I got harped on a little bit too much here for it, but let me go to this play here. Again, family clothesline brought to you. Let me say that again. This film room is brought to you by the family clothesline. There's good things and bad things about Drew Aller that we saw in the blue and white game. This is one of those times where it's kind of a bad thing. 3rd and 6 here, so they got to get roughly to the 24-yard line. I harped on a lot about his ball placement, and people were saying, well, it was really windy on his touch throws. Well, this play right here is not a touch flow. Let's watch and see what happens here. So again, 3rd and 6. So they just need about, again, to the 24-yard line. Well, this ball is thrown and caught roughly about at the 27-yard line. Now, it's not all Drew Aller's fault. Let me preface that. Theoretically here, is that who is that?
That's Rappleyea.
That is Rappleyea, 87. Rappleyea probably needs to run a little bit of a longer route here before he makes his cut. But at the same time, if this ball is thrown on the outside shoulder of Rappleyaa's, he might have a chance to turn upfield against a smaller cornerback and pummel forward and pick up the first down. But because this ball is thrown a little bit late, but also back inside, now Rappleyea loses all momentum and has no chance to pick up an extra 3 yards, as you see here. And a great job there of sticking him before he even has a chance to get momentum. But that ball should already be out. The ball should already be there right now. It's late. It's on the wrong side. And Rappleyea has no chance of converting this 3rd down. In fact, they only get like a 2 or 3 yards there. So simple thing, but those are the little things that make a huge difference. You go from a potentially 4th and 1, 4th and 2, so now you're at a 4th and 4, 4th and 5, and you might not even consider going for that. You kick the field goal. You don't keep the drive alive.
Yeah. I'm happy you talked about the route because it definitely looked like it should have been a longer route. But yeah, I mean, ball placement is a huge part of quarterbacking, and it's something that people don't talk enough about. And you look at the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and you could talk about having a big arm all day, but if that ball isn't where it's not necessarily even about how hard you throw it as much as it is where the ball is. Are you giving your guy a chance to go and pick up yak yards? And on this play, Drew doesn't give his guy a great chance to pick up yak yards and just kind of gets stuck there. But those are the types of things we have to improve between now and when we go to Morgantown. So yeah.
All right. Well, we'll
and family clothesline. Thank you. I love the jingle.
Yeah, we need to get some
24/7
stuff in here.
24/7. Get the deal.
All right. Let's go now to the fan questions here. Again, the fan questions brought to you by Utz. Look, I knew Utz made potato chips. Didn't realize they made a bunch of other snacks. Still love my honey barbecue, but they got a lot of other options out there. I didn't even realize they made like a cheese puff. So they got some good stuff. Make sure to check them out. Fan question time. First question here from Mudbug. What are 3 must-haves for you guys for the upcoming season? Meaning, if these things don't happen, you'd consider this year a failure. For example, Drew Aller throws for 3,000 yards, a win versus Ohio State, hitting 500,000 for the Retain the Roar camp. Give me one thing that is
Yeah, first thing, I think you have to make the playoffs this year. It's a 12-team playoff. 22, 23 would have been in. And I think you have to keep that momentum going. And I think I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the top 12, well, top 11 because it's a group of 5, top 11 team. I don't think that's an outrageous expectation. So if any more, I'm probably going to be now expectations do change based on how the season goes. I get that, but I'm probably going to be a playoff or bust type guy from now on. Like you have to make the playoff or you were probably just kind of mid.
Yep, you went for the low-hanging fruit there. I'll go simple here. I need to see Drew Aller play like a 5-star quarterback. And that means having confidence. That means taking that next step as a quarterback. And it doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with the team success. But Drew Aller came here and he was the 5-star guy, and it was like Penn State finally has that quarterback to take them to the next level. A lot of what we talked about early in the show about maybe just being knocking on the door, a lot of that could have been alleviated with a top 10 quarterback. And Penn State hasn't really had one of those. Had some really good quarterbacks that did some tremendous things. Trace McSorley, Sean Clifford, but they haven't had a elite quarterback, Heisman caliber quarterback to get them over the edge. I don't necessarily even need Drew Allard to be at that level, but I need him to play like a 5-star quarterback, especially in those big moments, in those big games. Just because it's something that I'm been waiting for Penn State to have, and Drew Allard was supposed to be that guy. Really think Penn State must have Drew Allard be that guy in 2024. They could have a really good year without him being that guy. Be nice to see him do it, though.
Yeah. I mean, quarterback's most important position on the field. If Drew Allard plays like a 5-star quarterback, yeah, I mean, sky's the limit for this team. The other thing, I'll name another thing. I think Penn State needs to have a top 10 defense. And especially when you consider that I don't have all that much faith in the offense, I do think they'll be better this year. But the question is, how much better will they be? And then I am expecting the defense to have a little bit of a drop-off. Now, I don't think that's a slight to them, because I thought they might have had the best defense in America last year. But I am expecting a little bit of a drop-off, and you don't want a top 2 or 3 defense to become a top 20 defense. That is a huge...
I disconnected. Okay, we're good again. Sorry for the technical delay there. Let's go to our next question. All right, this question is brought to you by Utz Potato Chips and Snacks from our Scats. Do you expect any more significant moves into or out of the transfer portal? Kind of already answered this a little bit, Shawn, but we don't really expect any more significant moves in Penn State's favor as far as picking up people at this point. Not a lot out there. Obviously, things can change, but as of May 1st, looks like Penn State's roster is about what Penn State's roster is.
Yeah, this is essentially going to be what it is. I mean, you could have a guy hit the portal. You could have a guy come in, but I'm not expecting much.
All righty. Let's go to the next question here. Will Gamble says Drew Allard was talking up the receivers in his interview with Christian Hackenberg, our boss. Do you think our receiver room will be better than last year? Honestly. Straight up, Shawn, do you think the receivers will be better this year than last year?
Well, they need to be. But sure, because I'm in an optimistic kind of mood today. No. I mean, honestly, yes, I do. And part of the reason is I really like what Julian Fleming could bring to this room. And I think there were some things in the receiver room off the field that weren't exactly always positive and kosher. And sometimes different elements of it could bring it down. And I don't think those elements are necessarily going to be there this year. So, yeah, I think Julian Fleming is going to make a world of difference in the small things, the blocking, the hitting the jugs machine after practice. And those small things lead to bigger things. So, yes, I do think they'll be better. Again, question is how much? That's the big question. How much better? And guys, if they're worse, I mean, it's probably going to be staring 9-3 right now, or 8-4.
Yes. Leadership being the reason why. Second year of Marcus Hagan's the reason why. I say yes, to make it simple.
Yeah, you essentially said what I said in fewer words.
Okay. Matty Ice says, how many chicken baskets do we have to buy to compete with Ohio State?
107,000.
Apparently 107,000. He had a more serious question, though. He did ask, does Jamil Lyons, defensive end Jamil Lyons, make the two deep? I've already claimed Jamil Lyons as mine. I am in the Jamil Lyons fan club. I am going to say yes, Jamil Lyons is in the two deep and plays a significant amount of football, given the amount of talent is in front of him. So yes, I think Jamil Lyons. I think Jamil Lyons has 3 sacks in 2024.
I could see the 3 sacks. I don't think he'll be in too deep though, and that's because he has so much experience ahead of him. You look at Denai Dennis Sutton.
So you have Zariah Fisher above him.
I would have Denai Dennis Sutton. I would have
Carter.
Vanover. I would have Amin Vanover, and I would have Zariah Fisher.
Okay, I mean, there's no wrong answers. I like them all. Let's go to this question next. Devin says, how come Penn State has had some success with offensive linemen going to the NFL, but continue to struggle to run the ball against elite teams in our conference? This was, again, the case against Ohio State, Michigan in 2023, yet Olu and Wallace were 2 of the best in the country. What are we missing in the run game? Well, first of all, not a lot of teams run really well against the elite teams. I mean, that's the first thing. The second thing is they ran okay, but the problem is if you can't throw the football and you're not a threat to throw the football, no one's gonna really do anything besides stack the box to stop the run. And that's kind of what Penn State has found themselves in. Until they can stretch the defense vertically or horizontally, they are going to struggle to run the football. And that's why you saw a little bit more firepower when Bo Prabila came in, because he put a little bit more stress on those outside linebackers, a little bit more stretch on those safeties to prevent them from going downhill so fast. You can either do that by having a running quarterback, or you can do that by being able to throw the football down the field. That's the main reason for why they haven't been able to do that. Not as much the offensive tackles being bad, although I would argue Olu's strength was in pass blocking, not in run blocking.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if I had one knock on the offensive line, I think they play a little too finesse sometimes, including Olu. So I think part of it is style. I think I would like to see them play a little more physical. I know that kind of sounds like a caveman thing to say, but it kind of was their MO. Like, Olu wasn't the type of guy who, and I don't think anybody would describe as a baller. Like, I don't know if there are a whole lot of maulers on the offensive line last year. So I think they're missing a little bit in physicality.
Yeah, and Juice Scruggs, I think, had some mauling tendencies.
Juice did, yes.
I think Sal Wormley has some mauling tendencies to him, but I think you have a good point there. All right, let's wrap up with this question here. Again, thank you to Utz sponsoring the fan questions for today's show. This one's from Chris Powell. How can we get our millionaire alumni to donate big money to NIL? How do we get them bought in? How do we get them to donate more money when they're used to using donations as tax write-offs? So if you find the answer to this question, Chris, I think they'll have a job for you over in Lash or in Old Main, either or, maybe both, because that is obviously like people's whole jobs are to do these things, right? In simplest terms, anything you invest in, you want to see a return in, whatever that return is in, whether that's money, whether that's happiness, whatever the case may be, there's got to be some sort of return. What the football team, what Penn State has to do is, hey, invest in this because blank. And if they can figure out what that blank is per donor, because I think it's easy and it's a mistake to put everyone in the same bucket. I think everybody has different things, and if you try to attack everybody with a blanket statement, you're not going to get the results that you could. So you got to find a way to attack each of these donors differently, and there's no simple answer to your question, Chris, but winning doesn't hurt.
Winning cures all, right? Yeah, and I hear what you're saying about the return on investment, because think of it this way. Do you think Ohio State, who has big alumni, big NIL war chest, do you think their donors are happy since NIL came about? I don't think so. They've gotten beaten by Michigan 3 straight years. They haven't won the playoff, or they haven't won the playoff. They haven't won a national championship in over 10. Michigan, their rival, just won the national championship. I don't think they're happy. Now, I think rich donors are going to do a couple things, though. Some of them will say, well, this is all the more reason that I have to spend, and I have to keep donating more. It's kind of like a gambler. You're trying to win it back, but then you're kind of chasing the dragon. But then there are also those that are going to go, no, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, and we still keep losing to Michigan. We still can't win the Big Ten. I'm out. So I think retaining donors is a very, very difficult thing to do as well. And I don't think that gets talked about enough. Now, as far as how do we get more of our rich donors to donate, like I said, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. I think there's still some donors that are maybe not like super rich, but wealthy, or maybe not super wealthy, but rich, who are still mad about the Joe thing, and that we haven't honored Joe enough. And I don't know if you'll do enough to make those people happy, because if you name the stadium after him, well, then they'll want Curtin Road named after him, and then they'll want this thing named after him. They'll want Joe Paterno Saturdays, or Joe Paterno. There is no Saturday. It's just Paterno Day, and there's an element to that. But I think maybe trying to work with some of those quote unquote paternal people could be something worth considering within reason.
You just say they're going to replace Saturday with Paterno Day? Every Saturday would just
Paterno Day.
Is that for the whole year or just the fall?
Forever, in perpetuity. It's just Paterno Day.
Yeah, I just was trying to clarify the logistics of that.
Or if we put the statue back up, it'll be something else. And
it could get a little confusing. Franklin Fanatic says, true or false? Third in the Big Ten is good enough for the playoffs.
True. I think most years.
I'd say 90% of the time.
Yeah, nowadays, because there's 18 teams in there. So yeah, third is, heck, if you're fifth, you might get in.
Well, the discrepancy in the draft picks from the SEC and Big Ten and the rest of the country was pretty outlandish. I mean, it's pretty clearly the big two and everybody else. That's just kind of where we're heading. So keep that in your mind. But the third team, I would say the fourth team's more on the bubble than the third team.
Yes, we're not always going to get 4 teams in. So, yeah, but I think third, yeah, like you assume, like early, like right now, I would give Ohio State or Oregon the edge to win the conference. But then that third spot, I mean, all the spots are up for grabs, I guess, but that third spot could be 4 different teams. I think you could make a good argument could be third in Big Ten.
How mad are you going to be when Penn State finishes 15 outside of the playoff?
Oh, it'll happen. Not as mad though, because I'll be like, because keep in mind, like if you finish 13th, right? Like for example, Corey, the 2018 team, your senior year, they finished right outside the New Year's Six Bowls. Are you really upset that they didn't get a New Year's Six Bowl? I wasn't. I was like, this team's not that good.
Yeah. Yeah, they still could have been a lot better than it should have been, but it's another conversation for a different day.
Yeah, they kind of blew it multiple times.
But hey, that's all we have. Again, make sure that you're subscribed wherever you listen, and we will be back next week. Thank you for being here live if you were watching on YouTube, and we will be back in a little bit for Shawn Kane. I'm Cory Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football.